Welcome to Thalira Tales, where stories bloom in silence, carrying emotion, mystery, and hidden truth. Step in and let the tale unfold.
They thought she had completely collapsed. They thought she was wallowing in absolute misery. The Sinclair family had invited Sophia back into their lives for one reason only: to gloat over her misfortune while her ex-husband married a younger, richer woman. Victoria Sinclair, the ruthless matriarch of the family, had even arranged a seat for her at a table near the kitchen doors to rub her face in it. But she was dead wrong. She didn't know that Sophia wouldn't be coming alone. When the doors of the estate opened, Sophia didn't walk in crying. She walked in flanked by her 3 identical sons, 3 miniature replicas of the man waiting at the altar, and the secret she had kept for 4 years was about to turn this picture-perfect wedding into a battlefield. The cream-colored envelope was heavy and smelled of an expensive, custom fragrance, a scent Sophia Evans knew all too well. It was Victoria Sinclair's signature perfume. The woman who had made her life a living hell for 3 years. Sophia stood in the foyer of her ultra-modern, glass-walled penthouse overlooking Central Park on Fifth Avenue. She turned the envelope over and over in her hands. The calligraphy was flawless. The gold ink shimmered under the light of the chandelier. Michael Sinclair and Isabel Montgomery request the honor of your presence. Sophia let out a bitter laugh, devoid of any joy. Michael, the man who had promised to love her forever, had stood by in silence as his mother, Victoria, tore her heart to pieces little by little. Michael, who had signed the divorce papers 4 years ago without even looking her in the eyes, letting Victoria throw a measly settlement check at her feet as if paying off a maid. "Mommy, who is it?" Sophia looked down. Leo, one of her 4-year-old triplets, was tugging at her silk pajamas. Behind him, in the living room, Sam and Matthew were building a pillow fort on the rug. They had inherited Michael's piercing gray eyes and dark, wavy hair, but they had inherited Sophia's jawline, her stubbornness, and her passionate heart. "Nobody important, sweetie," Sophia said gently, ruffling Leo's hair. "Go play with your brothers." She went into the kitchen and tossed the invitation onto the marble island. Her assistant, a brilliant woman named Jasmine, looked up from her iPad. "Let me guess," Jasmine said, eyeing the gold lettering. "The Sinclairs." "Victoria," Sophia corrected, pouring herself a glass of water to soothe the sudden knot in her stomach. "She's inviting me to Michael's wedding next Saturday at the Sinclair estate in the Hamptons." Jasmine smiled wryly. "Didn't they kick you out of there with a single suitcase? Why would they want you there to celebrate right in front of you?" "Victoria wants to show me what I've missed out on," Sophia said, her voice hardening. "She wants to rub it in my face that Michael is finally marrying Isabel Montgomery, the senator's daughter from a prominent old money family, the exact kind of woman Victoria always wanted for him. She still thinks I'm the same broke waitress who could barely afford to eat when Michael met me 5 years ago. She has no idea." Sophia walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window and gazed out at the city below. 4 years ago, she had driven away from the Sinclair estate in a beat-up sedan, pregnant and terrified. She never told Michael she was pregnant. What would have been the point? Victoria had accused her of being a gold digger who had trapped her son. If she had found out about the pregnancy, Victoria would have taken the children away or made sure Sophia received absolutely no help, turning her life into a legal nightmare. So Sophia ran. She struggled, but she survived. And then she thrived. She used her last savings to start a boutique marketing agency. She worked relentlessly, 18 hours a day, with 3 babies practically strapped to her chest. But her luck changed. A viral ad campaign for a tech giant put her on the map. Then came another contract, and another. Now, Sophia Evans was no longer a lowly waitress. She was the CEO of Evans & Associates, one of the most respected corporate branding firms in the country. Her net worth was probably triple the dwindling Sinclair fortune, though they didn't know it. To them, the Sinclairs were still American royalty, and she was just a commoner. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hope you got the invitation," it read. "Figured you could use a free meal. It's black tie, but try to dress up a little, at least." "Michael." Sophia stared at the screen. No, that wasn't Michael. Michael was weak, but he wasn't cruel. That was a text from Victoria, without a doubt. "They think I'm starving," Sophia whispered as a slow, dangerous smile crept across her face. Jasmine noticed her boss's look. It was the exact look Sophia got right before closing a multi-million-dollar deal. "Sophia, what are you thinking?" Sophia picked up the invitation. Her finger traced the embossed date. "They want a show," Sophia said, her voice dropping to a murmur. They invited the ex-wife to sit her in the back and laugh at her. Victoria wants to prove she won. She turned to look at her boys, who were giggling uncontrollably as they demolished their pillow fort. 3 handsome, healthy heirs to the Sinclair name hidden away for 4 long years. Jasmine. Sophia said firmly, "Clear my schedule for next weekend and call my stylist. I need a dress." "No, not a dress. I need a weapon made of silk." "And the boys?" Jasmine asked. Sophia looked at her sons. "Order them custom-tailored suits. If Victoria wants a family reunion, I think it's about time she met her grandsons." The estate in the Hamptons was exactly how Sophia remembered it. Opulent, ostentatious, and cold. The sprawling, perfectly manicured lawns stretched out toward the ocean. A massive white tent had been erected near the gardens, adorned with thousands of white roses. It was a display of wealth designed to intimidate. Inside one of the master suites, Victoria Sinclair was adjusting a diamond necklace in front of the mirror. She was 60, but plastic surgery had shaved 10 years off her face. Her gaze was sharp, that of a predator. "Has she arrived yet?" Victoria asked without turning around. Michael, standing by the window in his tuxedo, looked pale. He swirled the whiskey in his glass with a slightly trembling hand. "I don't know, Mom. I still think this is a bad idea. Why invite Sophia? It's petty." "It's for closure," Victoria snapped, turning toward him. "It's a reminder. Isabel is perfect. She comes from the right family. She has the right connections. Sophia was a mistake, a stain on our record. I want you to see her today in her cheap clothes, looking tired and aged. And I want you to realize the massive favor I did by saving you from her." "She hasn't even replied to the text," Michael muttered. "Maybe she won't come." "Oh, she'll come," Victoria said dismissively. "People like her never turn down a free drink and a chance to rub elbows with high society." I seated her at table 19, right by the kitchen doors and next to the restrooms. Michael sighed, looking out at the guests arriving in their Bentleys and Rolls Royces. He loved Isabel, of course. She was beautiful, confident, and mother-approved. But a small part of him still thought about Sophia, about how she laughed, about how she used to look at him before money and his mother drove a wedge between them. Meanwhile, a mile down the road, a convoy of 3 black Cadillac Escalades was approaching the estate. In the lead vehicle, Sophia remained perfectly calm. She was wearing a dress that cost more than an average car, a custom emerald green Versace gown with a bare back that clung to her body like liquid glass. Her hair was swept up into a sophisticated chignon, revealing diamond drop earrings that caught the light with every movement. But the real stars were sitting right next to her. Leo, Sam, and Matthew buckled into their booster seats, looked like tiny princes in their matching velvet suits. Leo in midnight blue, Sam in burgundy, and Matthew in forest green. They looked sharp. They looked powerful. "Do you remember what we practiced?" Sophia asked, turning to them. "Be polite." Leo said. "No running," Sam added. "Stick together," Matthew concluded. "Good boys." The SUV slowed down as it reached the security checkpoint at the estate gates. A guard with a clipboard peered through the window as the driver rolled it down. "Name," the guard said. "Sophia Evans," the driver replied. The guard checked his list, frowning. "I have a Sophia Evans on the list for the shuttle service from parking lot B." Sophia pressed a button, and her rear window glided down. She lowered her designer sunglasses and looked the guard dead in the eye. "Open the gate," she said in a low, even tone. It wasn't a request. It was an order delivered with the absolute authority of someone accustomed to commanding boardrooms. The guard stammered, entirely thrown off by the sheer power radiating from the vehicle. He didn't argue. He waved them through. As the convoy rolled down the long gravel driveway, heads began to turn. Guests were mingling on the lawn for pre-ceremony cocktails. They were expecting the usual limousines, not a full-blown security motorcade. The SUVs pulled to a stop directly in front of the main garden entrance, a VIP zone strictly reserved for the bridal party. "Hey, you can't park here!" A wedding planner with an earpiece yelled, jogging toward them. The driver of the lead vehicle ignored him, stepped out, and opened the rear door. An expectant hush fell over the crowd. Victoria, who had just stepped out onto the terrace with a glass of champagne, narrowed her eyes. "Who is that?" a senator next to her asked. The door opened. First, A pair of Christian Louboutin heels stepped onto the gravel. Then, Sophia emerged. She stood tall, smoothing out the emerald silk. She looked like royalty, a movie star. She was not the weeping, broken woman they had thrown out of this house 4 years ago. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Is that her? No, impossible. What is she wearing? That's haute couture. Victoria froze mid-sip. At first, she didn't even recognize Sophia. The woman she remembered was plain, dressed in off-the-rack mall clothes. This woman was a goddess of vengeance. But the real shock came a second later. Sophia turned back to the car and extended her hand. Come on, my loves, one at a time. Leo, Sam, and Matthew hopped out. A collective gasp swept through the guests. The dark hair, the shape of their faces, the resemblance was undeniable. And when they looked up, blinking in the sunlight, 3 pairs of identical gray eyes scanned their surroundings. They were exact replicas of Michael Sinclair at 4 years old. Victoria dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the stone patio, the sound echoing sharply in the sudden dead silence. Michael, who had just walked up behind his mother, gripped the railing tightly. All the color drained from his face. He stared at the boys, then at Sophia, and then back at the boys. The math hit him like a freight train. 4 years. Sophia adjusted Matthew's bow tie, then looked up toward the terrace. Her gaze met Victoria's. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She simply held her in a cold, serene stare that made Victoria tremble. Sophia took her son's hands and began walking toward the ceremony seating. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. "Mommy," Leo whispered loudly, his voice carrying in the silence. "Is that the daddy you talked about? The one on the balcony?" Sophia didn't look up. "We're just here to watch, sweetie. Keep walking." She didn't head to table 19 near the restrooms. She walked straight to the very front row, the VIP section reserved exclusively for the groom's immediate family. An usher, a terrified-looking young man, tried to stop her. "Ma'am, this section is only for immediate family." Sophia looked at him. She then pointed down at her 3 sons, who were standing next to her looking bored, staring at the altar. "I think," Sophia said, her voice soft but sharp as a razor, "you'll find absolutely no one closer to the groom than his own children." She sat down, and the wedding of the century began to unravel before the first note of the bridal chorus even played. The tension in the front row was so thick, it could have bent steel. The other guests in the front rows, senators, billionaires, and old money elites, pretended to read their programs, but every single one of them was eagerly eavesdropping on Sophia. Victoria Sinclair didn't run. She marched. The sharp click-clack of her heels echoed loudly on the stone as she descended from the terrace. Her face was a mask of fury, barely concealed by thousands of dollars worth of makeup. She reached the end of the front row, where Sophia was sitting like an emerald queen on her throne, flanked by her 3 little princes. "What is the meaning of this?" Victoria hissed. Her voice was a strained, shaking whisper. She leaned in, reeking of champagne and sheer desperation. "How dare you? I invited you to sit in the back and learn your place, not turn my son's wedding into a circus." Sophia didn't even flinch. She casually brushed some lint off Sam's velvet lapel. "Hello, Victoria. You look stressed. Did you get a new surgeon?" Victoria's face turned crimson. "Get out. Right now. Take those brats and leave. Before I have security drag you out by your hair. I won't be doing that," Sophia said calmly, finally looking up. Her eyes were like ice. "You sent me an invitation. I have the RSVP confirmation on my phone. And as for dragging us out, do you really want to make a scene? Look around, Victoria. The senator is watching. Judge Cross is watching. If your security guards touch a single hair on my head or my children's, I will sue you for assault in front of all of New York's high society. And this time, I have the money to bury you." Victoria hesitated, glancing around. Sophia was right. The guests were watching, hungry for a scandal. A public brawl would be social suicide. "Who are they?" Victoria whispered, her eyes sliding toward the little boys despite herself. She couldn't help it. The resemblance hit her like a physical blow. "They are my +3s, Sophia said simply. Just then, Michael appeared at the head of the aisle. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. He stopped dead in his tracks, 3 feet away, staring openly at the triplets. Matthew, the boldest of the 3, looked up at Michael and tilted his head, a gesture so eerily identical to Michael's own habit that the people closest to them gasped. "Mommy," Matthew said, tugging at Sophia's sleeve. "He looks like me." Michael shuddered as if he had been slapped. "Sophia," he said, his voice hoarse, his mouth dry. The arrogant posture he had 4 years ago was completely gone. "Sophia, tell me, what are they?" "Michael," Sophia asked, her voice just loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear clearly. "These are the sons you didn't want." "Oh, wait. You didn't know about them because you were too busy moving your mistress into our bedroom before the ink on our divorce papers was even dry." "Mistress," a woman in the second row whispered excitedly. This was the exact narrative Victoria had tried to bury, that Michael and Isabel had only met after the divorce. "I didn't know," Michael stammered. He looked at Leo, then Sam, then Matthew. He saw his own jawline, his own eyebrows. He saw 3 living legacies of the Sinclair bloodline staring right back at him. Michael's eyes welled up with tears. "How old are they?" "4, Sophia said. "They turned 4 last week. The math is pretty simple, Michael, or do you need a calculator?" "It's a scam." Victoria spat, inserting herself between Michael and the children. She grabbed Michael's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his tuxedo jacket. "Don't be an idiot, Michael." She hired them. She went to a talent agency and found child actors who vaguely look like you just to ruin your day. She's a jealous, vindictive little gold digger. "The grandma is scary," Sam whispered to Leo. They giggled. Victoria snapped her head around to glare at the boy, but she stopped. Sam was scowling at her, a very specific, deeply furrowed scowl that Victoria had seen on her own late husband's face for 40 years. It was a genetic marker that couldn't be faked. "Start the ceremony," Victoria barked, realizing she was rapidly losing control of the narrative. "Michael, to the altar. The music is starting, and you, Sophia, if you make one single sound, I will destroy you." Sophia smiled. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't need to say a word, Victoria. The truth speaks for itself." The organ swelled. The bridal chorus began. Victoria practically shoved Michael toward the altar. He walked reluctantly, constantly looking over his shoulder at his children, nearly tripping over the lavish floral arrangements. He took his place at the front, but he didn't look down the aisle waiting for his bride. He was staring fixedly at the front row. The heavy doors of the estate opened, and Isabel Montgomery appeared. She looked flawless. Her dress was custom Vera Wang, layers of lace and an impossibly long tulle train. She carried a cascading bouquet of white orchids. Her father, Senator Montgomery, looked bursting with pride as he escorted her. But as they began their walk down the long aisle, Isabel noticed something was horribly wrong. Usually, at a wedding, all eyes are glued to the bride. Guests smile, wipe away happy tears, and whisper about how beautiful she looks. But right now, half the guests had their heads turned toward the front row. They were craning their necks to look at the woman in the emerald dress and the 3 little boys. Isabel maintained her forced, photo-ready smile, but her eyes darted around. Who was that? And why was Michael staring blankly at her and those children? She reached the altar. Michael took her hands, but his palms were completely drenched in sweat. He was visibly shaking. "Are you okay?" she whispered as the minister began the opening prayer. "Yes," Michael gasped, though he looked like he was going to throw up. The minister, an elderly man who had known the Sinclair family for decades, droned on about sanctity and fidelity. The words rang hollow in the tense air. Then came the customary pause before the vows. The entire tent went dead silent, the only sound the distant crash of the ocean waves. "I'm hungry," Leo said. It wasn't a scream, it was just the clear, bored, declarative statement of a 4-year-old in a quiet room. "Shh," Sophia whispered, pulling a graham cracker out of her designer clutch and handing it to him. The loud crunch echoed like a gunshot. Victoria, sitting in the mother of the groom seat across the aisle, looked like a vein in her forehead was about to pop. She caught the eye of a security guard standing in the shadows and made a sharp, slicing motion across her throat. "Get them out." The beefy guard started walking aggressively toward Sophia. She saw him coming. She didn't flinch. She simply stood up. The sudden movement sent a shockwave through the congregation, who assumed she was about to object to the wedding. "Sit down," Victoria hissed, losing the last shred of her composure. Sophia ignored her. She looked at the guard, held up one manicured hand to stop him, and then looked directly at Michael. Michael, Sophia said. She didn't yell, but her voice carried with crystal clarity. Your mother is sending a guard to forcefully remove your children. Is this how you want to start your new marriage? By throwing your own flesh and blood out into the street again? The minister stopped speaking. Isabel dropped Michael's hands. Children? Isabel repeated, her voice going shrill. Michael, what is she talking about? She's lying, Victoria screamed, jumping to her feet. She's a pathological liar! Security! Drag her out of here! It's not a lie. A deep booming voice echoed from the back of the tent. Everyone turned around. Striding down the aisle was an older gentleman with silver hair and a stern, aristocratic face. It was Dr. Alexander Sinclair, Michael's uncle, the only family member who had actively avoided Victoria for years. He happened to be a world-renowned geneticist. Uncle Alexander, Michael murmured. I saw the boys out by the parking lot, Alexander said, walking right up to the front. He stopped and examined the triplets closely. And I know the Sinclair family trait when I see it. He pointed at the boys. Partial heterochromia of the iris. Sophia nodded. She gently cupped Leo's face. Show him, sweetie. Leo blinked up into the bright sunlight. It was unmistakable. His left eye was a piercing gray, but there was a distinct, bright gold fleck right in the iris. Michael has it, Alexander said, turning to address the stunned crowd. My father had it. It is an extremely rare genetic anomaly highly specific to our bloodline. Unless this woman magically found 3 child actors who just happened to share the rare Sinclair ocular defect. Those are your sons, Michael. The silence that followed was absolute. Isabel took a step back, her veil trembling. She looked deep into Michael's eyes, the eyes she had loved, and then down at the little boys. The gold fleck. It was there. You have kids? Isabel whispered. Triplets? And you never told me? I didn't know, Michael cried, his entire facade crumbling. She just left. I didn't tell you because your mother threatened to destroy my life if I didn't disappear, Sophia interjected, her voice crisp and commanding. Because she told me I was trash. Because she told me you never truly loved me. I was pregnant, Michael. I was terrified, and I knew that if Victoria found out, she would use your money to take my babies away from me and raise them to be exactly like her, cold, ruthless, and cruel. So I saved them. She looked down at her boys, who were happily munching on graham crackers, completely oblivious to the fact that they had just dismantled an American dynasty. I didn't come here to stop a wedding, Sophia lied flawlessly. I came here because Victoria insisted on putting on a show. Well, the show has started. Senator Montgomery, Isabel's father, stood up. He was a large man, and his face was purple with rage. He stomped up to the altar, grabbed Michael by the lapels of his tuxedo, and shoved him backward. You've humiliated my daughter. The senator roared. You have a secret family? Bastard children? They are not bastards. Sophia corrected, her voice ringing out like a bell. They were conceived during a legal marriage. They are the legitimate heirs to the Sinclair fortune, and by law, they are entitled to a very substantial portion of it. A choked gasp escaped Victoria's lips, and she slumped back into her chair, clutching her chest dramatically. Not a single person rushed to help her. They were far too busy watching the train wreck unfold. Isabel looked at Michael, then at Sophia, and finally at the boys. 3 beautiful, innocent reminders that Michael would forever be tied to his ex-wife. I can't do this, Isabel sobbed. She ripped the veil off her head. Isabel, wait, Michael pleaded, reaching for her. Don't touch me! She screamed. You're a liar, and your mother is a monster. I am not becoming a stepmother to triplets on my wedding day. She grabbed handfuls of her voluminous tulle skirt and sprinted back up the aisle, sobbing hysterically. Her father and mother stormed out right behind her, shooting murderous glares at the Sinclairs. The guests immediately erupted into chaotic whispers. Phones were whipped out, recording everything. The hashtag number, Sinclair Wedding Disaster, was probably already trending. Michael stood completely alone at the altar, looking utterly broken. Slowly, he turned back to Sophia. She was still standing there, perfectly composed and serene. She looked down at her boys. Well? Sophia said, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. That was much faster than I anticipated. Boys, say bye to Daddy. Bye, Daddy. Matthew waved cheerfully, his mouth full of cracker. Sophia turned around. Her emerald gown swirled around her as she grabbed her son's hands and confidently marched back up the aisle toward the exit. But the drama wasn't over yet. When she was halfway to the cars, Michael's voice echoed out, desperate and shattered. "Wait! Sophia! Please! Don't take them!" He jumped off the altar platform and sprinted across the manicured lawn after her. Sophia stopped, but she didn't turn around right away. She signaled her head driver to keep the engine running. Then she gestured for Jasmine to load the boys into the SUV. "Get in with Auntie Jasmine for a second," she said softly. "Mommy just needs to have the last word." "Is the sad man coming?" Leo asked, peeking over his shoulder at Michael, who was gasping for air on the grass. "Yes, sweetie. Get in. Put Bluey on the iPads." The heavy, armored door slammed shut, sealing the children inside the soundproof, bulletproof interior of the Escalade. Michael skidded to a halt on the gravel, panting, his perfectly styled hair ruined, sweat beading on his forehead. "Sophia," he gasped, reaching out a hand but not daring to touch her. He stared at the tinted windows of the SUV. "Are they really mine?" Sophia turned around slowly. "They are mine, Michael. I raised them. I gave birth to them. I fed them. I spent sleepless nights sitting up with them when they had fevers. You were just the sperm donor. I would have been there," Michael choked out, his voice cracking with a sob. "If I had known. If you had known, your mother would have demanded court-ordered DNA tests before they were even born," Sophia said coldly. "She would have dragged me through the courts. She would have stressed me out so much I could have miscarried. I wasn't going to risk my baby's lives for your ego. Michael." Victoria arrived, supported by 2 security guards. She wasn't yelling anymore, she was panting, but her face was full of cold, hard calculation. She looked at the expensive SUVs, really noticing them for the first time. She noticed the private security detail, the custom Versace, the massive diamonds on Sophia's ears. "You hid my grandsons," Victoria said, her voice dropping to a dangerous register. "You stole the heirs to the Sinclair legacy. I protected my sons from a highly toxic environment," Sophia corrected. Victoria straightened up, smoothing out her dress. The shark was preparing to attack. "Well, now that the secret is out, you can't keep them away from us. They are Sinclairs. They belong on this estate. They need to be raised in our culture, not in whatever dump you've been hiding them in. They live in a penthouse overlooking Central Park," Sophia said dryly. "They're doing just fine." Victoria smirked confidently. "Let's not play games, Sophia. I know you. You're probably living off maxed-out credit cards and the meager alimony we throw at you, pretending to be rich to impress us. But lawsuits are expensive. Custody battles are very, very expensive." Victoria stepped forward and pulled a checkbook out of her designer clutch. It was a power move she had used 1,000 times. "Let's be practical," Victoria said, clicking her gold pen. "Deep down, you're still just a diner waitress. You want financial security? Fine. I will write you a check right now for $5 million. In exchange, you sign full primary custody over to Michael. You can have supervised visitation, of course. Alternating holidays." Michael looked at his mother in absolute horror. "Mom, you can't buy them!" "Shut up, Michael," Victoria snapped. "I'm fixing your mess." She turned back to Sophia. $5 million. You can start over. Find a man from your own social class. Leave the task of raising high society heirs to us. Sophia looked at the checkbook, and then she started laughing. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a genuine, deeply amused laugh. $5 million? Sophia asked, tilting her head. "Victoria, that is so cute." $10 million, Victoria growled, her eyes narrowing. "Do not test my patience." Sophia took a step forward, invading Victoria's personal space. Her custom perfume entirely overpowered the smell of stale champagne on the older woman. "Victoria, I cleared $10 million on Tuesday before my lunch break," Sophia whispered. Victoria froze. "What?" "My company, Evans and Associates, just spearheaded the global rebranding for the quantum tech merger. My personal net worth currently hovers around $100 million and climbing." Sophia reached out and gently plucked the checkbook right out of Victoria's paralyzed hands. She patted Victoria on the cheek with it. "I don't need your money. I could buy this entire estate, burn it to the ground, and pave over it to make a parking lot for my interns without even checking my bank balance. So keep your pocket change. You're going to need it for your legal fees. Sophia turned to Michael, whose jaw was practically on the gravel. You wanted a wedding, Michael? Sophia asked. You got a funeral. Goodbye. She turned and climbed into the SUV. Sophia! Michael screamed, pounding his fist against the tinted glass as the massive vehicle began to roll away. Sophia, please, I want to know them! The motorcade didn't stop. It glided smoothly down the driveway, leaving nothing but a cloud of dust, and the Sinclair family standing in the absolute ruins of their perfect day. The fallout was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, paparazzi photos of the triplets were plastered on the front page of every major tabloid and gossip site in the country. Secret Sinclair triplets crash wedding read one headline. The ex-wife's ultimate revenge. Sophia's phone didn't stop ringing, but she had an elite PR team to handle the crisis. She sat in her corner office in Manhattan, calmly reviewing Q3 revenue projections. Victoria Sinclair, however, was pushed to the brink. Humiliated and completely exposed, she did the only thing she knew how to do: attack. On Wednesday, Sophia was served. It was an emergency custody petition, Sinclair versus Evans. Victoria and Michael were suing for full primary custody, accusing Sophia of parental alienation, fraud, and emotional distress, arguing that she was an unfit mother for deliberately concealing the children's existence. It was a weak case, and they knew it. But Victoria's strategy had always been to bleed her opponents dry through attrition. She hired the most vicious corporate litigators in Manhattan, the law firm of Sterling, Pierce, and Associates. Sophia read the legal papers at her desk while sipping a green smoothie. They want a war? She murmured. The deposition is scheduled for Friday, Jasmine said, checking the calendar. They want you to come down to their offices. They're trying to disrupt your business. Book the helicopter, Sophia said, and call my lead counsel. Tell him to bring the red folder. Friday. The grand boardroom of Sterling, Pierce, and Associates smelled of mahogany leather and intimidation. Victoria sat at the head of the massive table, looking arrogant and confident. Michael sat next to her, looking exhausted and unshaven. He clearly hadn't slept in days. Sophia walked in wearing a pristine white power suit that cost more than the opposing lawyer's car. She sat directly across from them. Miss Evans? Began Victoria's lawyer, a slick man named Pierce with a snake-like smile. Do you admit that you deliberately hid the existence of 3 children from their biological father? I admit that I fiercely protected my children from a family with a heavily documented history of emotional abuse, Sophia said calmly, staring a hole right through Victoria. Objection, Pierce barked. Speculation. It's not speculation, Sophia said, sliding a thick red folder across the polished table. It's a matter of public record. Victoria's first divorce filings, the restraining orders, the sworn testimonies of 3 former nannies detailing severe verbal abuse. Victoria stiffened. That is entirely irrelevant. Is it? Sophia asked, arching an eyebrow. We are discussing the welfare of children, correct? A family court judge might find it highly relevant that the grandmother petitioning for custody has a documented history of locking children in the attic as a disciplinary measure. Michael snapped his head toward his mother. You did that, Mom? She's lying. Victoria shrieked. I have sworn affidavits, Sophia countered, her voice ice cold. From your old nanny, Michael. Maria. Remember her? The one you adored? The one Victoria fired because she claimed Maria hugged you too much. Michael turned ashen. He remembered Maria. He remembered crying himself to sleep for weeks when she suddenly disappeared. This is baseless defamation, Pierce interrupted, trying desperately to regain control of the room. Miss Evans, the fact remains that the Sinclair family is an American institution. They can provide opportunities, elite education, political connections, a legacy that you could never possibly match. You run a marketing agency. The Sinclairs helped build this country. Sophia laughed, a loud, booming laugh that echoed off the boardroom walls. The Sinclairs sold off their last major real estate holding in 1995, and according to my forensic accounting team, you are rapidly running out of cash. The Sinclair fortune is drowning in debt. You took out a second mortgage on the Hamptons estate just to pay for a wedding that didn't even happen. Your oil investments tanked. You are broke. You are sinking. Dead silence fell over the room. Victoria's eyes were bugging out of her head. Sophia stood up and slowly paced around the table. You aren't suing me because you love those little boys. You're suing me because you desperately need leverage. You need access to my money, or at the very least, you want control of the trust funds the boys will inherit from Michael's grandfather if they live under your roof. Michael looked at his mother with pure, unadulterated disgust. Mom, is that true? Is that why you demanded full custody? Victoria didn't look at her son. She stared straight ahead, her hands trembling violently on the table. I have an offer, Sophia said, stopping right behind Michael's heavy leather chair. We don't want your filthy money! Victoria spat. Oh, this isn't for you, Sophia said dismissively. She rested a gentle hand on Michael's shoulder. Michael, I will let you see the boys. Michael looked up, hope flashing in his tired eyes. On my terms, Sophia stated firmly. No lawyers, no Victoria. You commute to the city, you stay in a hotel, and you visit them in Central Park or at my penthouse, strictly supervised by me. You get to know them as their father, not as the props for a ruined empire. I want that, Michael whispered, his voice breaking. And you, Sophia said, pointing a manicured finger right at Victoria's face. You drop this frivolous lawsuit right now. You sign an ironclad NDA swearing never to speak to the press about my children again. If you breach it, I hand this red folder directly to the editor of the New York Times. What else is in the red folder? Victoria demanded, her voice shaking. Photos, Sophia said mysteriously. Bank statements. And a very clear audio recording of a conversation between you and Senator Montgomery regarding a massive political bribe. Victoria's face drained of all blood. She remembered the bribe, the illegal campaign donation she had offered the senator to secure the marriage. If that leaked, it wouldn't just be a social scandal. It would mean federal prison. Sign the papers, Mom, Michael said quietly. He stood up. Michael, you are throwing away your legacy, Victoria cried. My legacy is in New York, Michael said firmly. My legacy is 3 little boys I don't even know. He looked at Sophia. I'll sign. I'll drop the suit today. I just want to see them. Sophia nodded. Then we have a deal. She turned to walk out, but paused with her hand on the heavy glass door. Oh, and Victoria? The older woman looked up, looking utterly defeated and frail. By the way, I bought the mortgage to your Hamptons estate this morning. Sophia smirked. Technically, you're living in my house now. Don't worry, I won't evict you immediately. Just make sure the landscaping is always perfect. Sophia walked out, leaving the door wide open. The sharp click-clack of her heels echoed down the marble hallway. It was the sound of absolute, unquestionable victory. But while the legal war was over, the emotional battle was just beginning. Michael was coming to New York, and Sophia knew that introducing a father to 3 boys who had never known one would be harder than any boardroom negotiation. 2 weeks later, a soft, steady rain fell over Manhattan, tapping gently against the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of Sophia's Fifth Avenue penthouse. It was a world away from the sunny, manicured perfection of the Hamptons, but to Sophia, it was the sound of home. She stood by the marble kitchen island, watching the private elevator's floor indicator tick upward. Floor 30. Floor 31. Is he coming yet? Leo asked. He was sitting on the plush rug, lining up his toy cars in perfectly color-coordinated rows, a rigid trait he had definitely inherited from his grandmother, though Sophia would never admit it out loud. Yes, sweetie, he's almost here, Sophia said. Her voice was calm, even though her heart was beating with slow, heavy thuds. She had spent 2 days carefully prepping the boys. She didn't say, your father is coming to live here. She simply said, Michael is coming to visit. He's your dad, and he wants to play with you. She kept expectations incredibly low just in case Michael backed out, or just in case he turned out to be as stiff and cold as his mother. She refused to let her children be disappointed. The elevator bell chimed. The polished doors slid open. Michael Sinclair stepped out. He looked entirely different. The stifling tuxedo was gone, replaced by a dark, comfortable sweater and jeans that looked so brand new he had probably hired a personal shopper to buy him casual dad clothes for the occasion. He was carrying 3 identical, expensive-looking gift bags. His hands were shaking. He looked at Sophia. Then his eyes drifted past her to the living room, where 3 pairs of identical gray eyes were staring at him unblinking. Hi, Michael said, his voice trembling slightly. Hello, Michael, Sophia said, her arms crossed defensively over her chest. She didn't hug him. She didn't offer him a drink. She was the gatekeeper. Take off your shoes in the foyer. We don't wear outside shoes in the house. Right. Of course. Michael fumbled awkwardly with his designer loafers, nearly losing his balance. He placed them neatly on the shoe rack and stepped into the living room, feeling like a massive intruder. He stopped about 5 feet away from the boys. The triplets stood up. They were wearing matching dinosaur t-shirts. Matthew, the fearless leader of the trio, took a step forward. He tilted his head, studying Michael's face intensely. You're the guy from the grass, Matthew said. The one who was running. Michael looked taken aback, then offered a sad, small smile. Yeah, that was me. I'm Michael. Mommy says you're our dad, Sam said, peeking out from behind Leo like a shy character in a storybook. Yes, Michael whispered. He slowly dropped down to one knee, so he was at eye level with them. It was an act of submission, an act Victoria would have aggressively scolded him for. Sinclair's do not kneel. She would have barked. But Victoria wasn't here. I didn't know you existed, Michael said, his voice thick with repressed emotion. If I had known, I would have come looking for you a long time ago. I brought you something. He pushed the expensive gift bags toward them. The boys looked up at Sophia. She gave a tiny nod of approval. They tore into the bags. Inside were highly detailed, collector's edition model trains, expensive, fragile, and completely inappropriate for rambunctious 4-year-olds. Train. Leo yelled, grabbing the heavy locomotive. He immediately dropped to the floor and tried to smash it along the rug like a monster truck. A delicate, ornamental plastic piece snapped right off. Michael's first instinct was to wince. He had been raised in a museum where children were meant to be seen and not heard, and nothing was ever allowed to be touched. But he caught Sophia's sharp, warning glare. It's okay, Michael said entirely too quickly. They're supposed to break, so we can practice fixing them. Can you fix it? Leo asked, holding out the broken piece of plastic. Michael stared at it. He had never fixed a toy in his entire life. He had a massive estate staff for that. But he looked at his son's hopeful, expectant face, a perfect mirror of his own. Can I try? Michael asked softly. Do you have any glue? I have glue. Matthew shouted, sprinting toward a drawer full of arts and crafts supplies. For the next hour, Sophia watched a truly surreal scene unfold. The heir to the Sinclair empire, a man ruthlessly trained to hostile takeover corporations and charm senators, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, covered in sparkly craft glue, desperately trying to fix a model train, while 3 loud, chaotic toddlers climbed all over him. He was awkward. He didn't know how to talk to them normally. He used vocabulary words that were way too big. He flinched and tensed up when Sam suddenly tackled him with a hug, but he tried. Do you live in a castle? Sam asked, currently hanging off Michael's back like a monkey. Kind of, Michael murmured. A very big house, but it's very quiet. Why is it quiet? Because there are no kids there, Michael said. He looked up at Sophia, his eyes red-rimmed and watery. It's so quiet. Sophia felt a tiny, microscopic crack form in her heavy armor. She walked over and sat on the edge of the sofa near them. Lunchtime, she announced. Who wants grilled cheese sandwiches? Me! The boys yelled in unison. Me too, Michael said quietly. They ate at the kitchen island. Michael barely touched his food. He was too busy watching the boys eat, hypnotized by the way they held their sandwiches, the way they giggled, the way they argued over who got the blue cup. They have your nose, Michael said to Sophia over the noise. And your laugh. They have your stubbornness, Sophia replied, taking a sip of water. And your eyes? Michael put his sandwich down. Sophia, I know I can't undo the last 4 years. I know my mother is. Difficult. Difficult is a very polite word for a raging sociopath, Sophia commented dryly. She's completely alone now, Michael said. After the wedding blew up, after Isabel's family pulled all their investments, the house just emptied out. The staff barely speaks to her. She just sits in the library staring at the wall. She's terrified you're going to foreclose on the estate. I just might, Sophia said casually. She won't give you any more trouble, Michael promised. I told her that if she ever contacts you, or tries to take you to court again, I will sever all ties with her forever. I'm done, Sophia. I don't want to be her puppet anymore. He looked back at his sons, who were currently trying to balance spoons on their noses. I missed everything, Michael whispered, his voice cracking. Their first steps, their first words. I missed all of it because I was too weak to stand up to her. You're here right now, Sophia said. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was an acknowledgement. Don't promise them forever, Michael. Just promise them next Saturday. I promise, Michael said fiercely. I'll be here every Saturday. I'll catch a flight. I don't care. I'll move to the city if I have to. Let's just start with Saturday, Sophia said. As the rainy afternoon dragged on, the boys' chaotic energy finally began to crash. It was nap time. One by one, they rubbed their eyes and crawled up onto the sofa next to Sophia. She picked up Sam. Michael, moving with a hesitant, terrified awkwardness, scooped up Leo. Leo instantly went limp, resting his heavy little head right on Michael's shoulder and popping his thumb into his mouth. Michael completely froze. He stared down at the small, warm weight resting against his chest. A single tear escaped and rolled down his cheek. He hugged Leo just a little bit tighter, breathing in the smell of baby shampoo and warm milk. It was the very first time in his entire life that someone had hugged him and loved him unconditionally, without caring about his bank account or his powerful last name. They carried the boys into their bedroom and tucked them in. Michael lingered in the doorway, just watching the blankets rise and fall. Thank you, he whispered to Sophia in the hallway. For not hiding them from me today. You had every right to. I didn't do it for you, Sophia reminded him gently. I did it for them. Every child deserves to know exactly where they come from, even if they choose to walk a different path. They walked back to the private elevator together. Michael put his designer shoes back on. He looked exhausted, covered in dried glitter glue, his hair a mess. He looked far more handsome right now than he ever did in his bespoke tuxedo. Next week? Same time? Michael asked, his voice tinged with lingering insecurity. Sophia looked at him. She saw the man she had originally fallen in love with, buried deep beneath layers of toxic family trauma and suffocating expectations, finally clawing his way up to the surface. Same time, Sophia agreed. And Michael? He turned back. Next time, bring Legos. They actually hate trains. Michael let out a loud, genuine, deeply relieved laugh. Understood. The elevator doors slid shut, leaving Sophia in the peaceful silence of her penthouse. She walked over to the glass window and looked out at the sprawling gray skyline of New York City. She thought about Victoria, rotting away in a massive, empty mansion in the Hamptons, desperately clutching a checkbook that no longer held any power. She thought about Isabel, who had dodged a bullet of epic proportions. And she thought about herself. 4 years ago, she was the victim, the runaway pregnant waitress. Now, she was the CEO, the mother, the absolute victor. She hadn't just survived the Sinclair family, she had utterly conquered them. She had raised the heirs to the throne, but she was raising them to be the kings of their own independent lives. Sophia smiled, took a sip of her now cold coffee, and opened her laptop to check her emails. This corporate empire wasn't going to run itself. The story of Sophia Evans and the 3 Sinclair heirs didn't end with a dramatic wedding or a vicious lawsuit. It ended with a quiet, continuous victory. Over the next year, the landscape shifted permanently. Michael became a constant, steady fixture in New York, slowly learning how to be a real father instead of just a hedge fund manager. He eventually moved to Manhattan permanently, abandoning the toxic, suffocating halls of the Sinclair estate for good. Victoria remained in the Hamptons, a bitter queen in a crumbling, mortgaged castle, living entirely off an allowance from her son and the lingering mercy of her ex-daughter-in-law. She never met the boys. Sophia never allowed it, and Michael eventually stopped asking. The boys grew up knowing they were deeply loved, not for their heavy last name, but for exactly who they were. They had their father's eyes, but they had their mother's unstoppable fire. And Sophia? She just kept rising. She proved that the greatest revenge isn't screaming or fighting in a courtroom. The greatest revenge is living a life so incredibly successful, brilliant, and happy that the people who once tried to destroy you become nothing more than a pathetic footnote in your biography. She didn't need the Sinclair fortune. She had built her own, and that, in the end, was the ultimate power move. Awesome. A perfect ending. I think we can all agree Sophia is the ultimate boss for how she handled Victoria. It shows you should never underestimate someone just because they're going through a tough time. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, redemption, and 3 secret triplets, smash the like button. It really helps the channel. If you were Sophia, what would you have done? Would you have let Michael see the kids? Or kept them a secret forever? Let me know in the comments below. I read them all. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Next week, I have an amazing one about a billionaire going undercover as a janitor at his own company. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Yeah.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. I'm freezing, I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile, every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.